Gen Z is undateable. I know why you're here.
I am 21 and I've never had a boyfriend.
This is coming from someone who's never been in a relationship.
And I'm in my 20s right now.
What age is it a red flag if somebody says they've never been in a serious relationship?
20. I've calculated that I've been on around 80 dates. And maybe you've been on more, maybe you've been on less. But one thing that I'm sure we've all thought to ourselves is, what's wrong with me? Why haven't I been in a relationship yet? Am I looking in the right places? How do I meet people in real life?
I didn't date at all until my late 20s.
Only time I held hands with a guy that wasn't my family was that I had to dance in a little circle.
And when I say I didn't date, I mean I didn't do anything until I was 26.
And then you see like kids who are younger than you in relationships.
I had no idea what a relationship was like. I'd never slept with someone before. I'd never gone on a date. I never held hands with anyone. Nothing.
I'm 26 and I've never been on a date. I've never been on like a legit official date.
It's easy to blame our singleness on the age of social media and being chronically online, but there's a few more reasons you might not have thought of as to why Gen Z is undateable. Hi, if you're new, I'm Christina and I make videos for people who are feeling lonely. If you're a people pleaser, overthinker, overachiever, over anythinger, you're in the right place. We have seen statistic after statistic, article over article, constant media coverage on the fact that Gen Z is very much single. Whether by choice or not, a lot of us are in our single era. Maybe we want to focus on ourselves, or maybe we're not. Maybe we're single and we actually want to be in our first relationship for once. There's lots of videos circulating on the internet on this topic, but there's a few things that people just aren't talking about. Gen Z want to be perfect. I'll start dating when I graduate. I'll start dating when I have a good job. I'll start dating when I lose weight. I'll start dating when I have good money. We all want to be perfect for our partners, and when you think about it in a way, it's very, very sweet. It's very endearing. We are a generation that we actually want to present our best selves to our partners. We don't want to come like half-heartedly. We don't want to come to a partner as a project that's not quite finished yet or not quite at its best. We all want to be perfect, and as endearing as that is, that's probably one of the main reasons why our generation is so single. I think when you're constantly online, you see so many other people achieving big things in life. Maybe it's nothing crazy like becoming millionaires at 19 or buying a Lamborghini at 24. Maybe it's nothing crazy like that. But you see people that you went to high school with, like buying a house. Or you see people that you went to college with, like having their first baby. Someone that you were colleagues with who's just got a promotion into a huge company in a new position. You've got so many people in your life that you were aligned with that have maybe made major moves, which is great for them. But then it makes you put conditions on when you will get to those moves. Like, I'll start dating when I have money. I'll start dating when I look better. I'll start dating when I have the right wardrobe. I feel like Gen Z is less and less open to being imperfect and a little bit flawed. And compared to other generations like millennials and the generation before that, I feel like they maybe embrace their flaws a little bit more, and we definitely embrace them less. One of the main reasons why is because we have so many expectations. Going into anything nowadays, whether it's starting a new side hustle, going into a new job, going to a certain university, going into a relationship, there's so many expectations as to what will happen. Like, people have made a million videos on how to get a boyfriend or how to get a situationship to progress into a relationship, how to get into this university, how to get this job, how to have a successful pregnancy delivery situation. There's expectations and a rule book for everything, and it means that you put so many expectations on how it has to happen. If I have a relationship, it has to look like this. He has to say this. He can't do this. There's like rules for everything. I know for me, when I've gone on dates and I have expectations in my mind, I'm definitely not as open, and I don't think that's a good thing. Sometimes people say for a reason, don't they? When you're least expecting something, that's when it will happen. Expectations can sometimes hinder the dating process. You might think you have an idea of exactly what you want, and maybe you've watched those manifestation videos that tell you to write a list of what you're looking for in a partner. All that is great, but sometimes when you think you know what you want, on one hand, oh, I want this, I want him to tick all of these boxes, there's going to be something else that you've not even thought of, never even met, never even like comprehended, that could be even better than what you want. I was on TikTok looking at different videos on this topic, and this one I saved in particular. I've not watched it yet. I'll watch it with you guys.
I am 21 and I've never had a boyfriend. Is that weird? That is not in any way weird. You hear me? When I was 21, I knew absolutely nothing about boys. I'm 23 years old now, and I have many friends who are just as old as me, and they have never had a boyfriend, and they have never even had their first kiss. And this is a very healthy thing. Taking your time is
That's another thing with social media. There is no rush. Like, you see anything that you want, like, not even just relationships, anything you want career-wise, emotional-wise, weight loss-wise, clothing-wise, fashion-wise, Instagram-wise, Someone has had it younger than you, and sometimes that puts so much pressure for you to hurry up. But in reality, like, what are you hurrying up for? You don't know the chapters of your life that are yet to come. Everything happens exactly as it's meant to, and it's a shame because we only ever see that in hindsight.
Because you cannot do anything worse than have certain experiences too early just because other people are having them and you think that you are missing out. You are on your own personal timeline that needs to work for you and only for you and for no one else, because you need to live with your choices, not your friends, not your parents, not the people around you. You need to live with your choices. And if you can sleep at night knowing that you're not pained by a broken heart, then girl, that is a win.
That is a win, for sure. Sometimes when we think relationships, we automatically assume it's going to be positive. And that's a good bias to have. It's definitely a good bias to have. But sometimes I think you can be a bit blindsided and you might romanticize the process a bit too much and forget that sometimes relationships can be actually really, really toxic or really sad, really abusive, really like not what you'd expect. It can be your worst nightmare. So sometimes when you're not having a certain thing, don't just assume you're missing out on a good thing. You might be missing out on a very bad thing.
Relationship when I was 21, and before that I had never even really been in the same room with a guy alone ever. And honestly, it was an experience and I learned a lot from it, but also part of why I went into that relationship was because I felt like everybody else had already been through it and I was kind of falling behind, and I was scared that I, wouldn't find anybody that really liked me.
Yeah, sometimes I think we can settle for less. If you're the sort of person that's clicked on this video, if you've ever seen those 19 and never had a boyfriend, 21 never had a girlfriend, if you've ever seen those videos, sometimes when you're like too in your head, you're thinking too much about that sort of thing. You're catastrophizing and trying to nitpick at yourself and break apart all the reasons why you are single and why you're going to be forever alone. Sometimes it will make you settle for less. Like, you'll see someone come along that maybe you wouldn't have gone for initially. They don't tick all the things on your list, on your manifestation list, but you're going to settle because you're like, oh, I have to, I'm behind. Like, you're not behind. How could you ever be behind? No one else has lived your life before.
I wouldn't ever experience it, so why not do it now? And so I rushed into it and obviously got hurt in the process. And so in many ways, I do wish I would have waited for that right person instead of thinking, oh, but I am too old now and I'm just missing out. You're not missing out. You are creating the best version of yourself and loving yourself, learning to love yourself. And that makes you way more ahead than other people are, because other people try to find validation in their relationship and in other people, and then they hurt those people because they don't even love themselves. Whereas it's way smarter to learn to love yourself first and then commit to somebody else, right?
Word, that was facts. When it comes to relationships, your level of patience reflects your level of confidence. If you are rushing into something and desperate to get into something now, this week, this month, that's just a sign that you lack a lot of confidence. And sometimes I think when you settle, it's not even because you believe you deserve this thing you've settled for. You know you don't deserve the way that they treat you, the way that they take 3 days to reply to your messages. Like, you know you don't deserve that, but your confidence is lacking and it shows in your lack of patience. Another reason Gen Z are undateable is Gen Z refuse to open up. I'm not going to tell you how I feel. I'm not going to talk about my feelings. I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to share my deepest, darkest secrets. I'm not going to share all the things I actually need to have a relationship. This one is very much a personal one for me because I cannot open up. Being vulnerable is something I've struggled with for such a long time. But what I've come to realize in therapy and talking to people and eventually opening up is, if you can't open up, you can't connect. If you want connection, you want a relationship, even just deep, really good friendships that people just know you have to open up. You can't have a surface level friendship and expect your friends to care about you. I'm sure we've all had that, where you've been friends with someone, you've been like small talk friends is what I like to call it. Like you talk about like little things, like what's on the TV, the weather, like school, you talk about college, you talk about work, you talk about surface level stuff. But if you got like a health scare or a family emergency, like you wouldn't be able to tell them, you'd be too scared. If you had like, I don't know, a talking stage, like fall apart, like you wouldn't be able to tell them because you just don't open up in that way. In anything, whether it's friendships or relationships, the depth of vulnerability is going to be the depth of the relationship. Like if you don't go deep, it's not going to be a deep friendship or a deep relationship. And sometimes I think for Gen Z, it's hard to open up. Like, I know other people my age, it's hard to open up. What comes naturally is scrolling on TikTok, scrolling on Instagram, and you can be out in public and just hide behind your phone. Like, you don't have to open up. You don't have to share that you're having a bad day, you're having a good day. You can just hide in your phone and just keep scrolling. It makes it so hard. Like, no wonder we don't open up.
If you're a hopeful romantic or hopeless romantic, but your dating experience is basically saying that you're going to be single for the rest of your life, I have the perfect video for you. This is coming from someone who's never been in a relationship, and I'm in my 20s right now. If you think about it logically speaking, if I've never been in a relationship for the first 20 plus years of my life, no one's really shown interest in me, that's how it's going to be for the rest of my life. But
so many of us fall into that trap. We're like, oh, like, it would have happened by now. I used to say that to myself so much. It would have happened by now. Like, I'm 19, I'm 20, I'm 23, I'm 23 now. And sometimes I tell myself, like, oh, it should have happened by now. Like, surely, like, and I'm like looking around frantically, and I have to catch myself because I'm like, Christina, your confidence is slipping. Your patience is going to slip as well. Do not sell.
But no, that is not how it works. That is not how life works. First of all, you should go watch my pet theory video, which I already have posted, which I go into a whole other theory that I thought about. But now I'm going to tell you a little anecdote that honestly gives me hope. There was a man in ancient times, and he had a horse and it died. And everyone said, oh my gosh, that's so horrible. How are you going to make money now? And he said, oh, well, I don't know if it's good or bad. Like, the horse just died. And everyone was like, what? That's a horrible thing. He got a bunch of money for the dead horse. And everyone said, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is wonderful. This is just your luck. And he said, whoa,
where are we going with this?
Good or bad. I'm really butchering the story. I'm so sorry. He bought a new horse with the money, obviously. But then his son was riding on the horse, fell off and broke both of his legs. And everyone said, oh my gosh, this is so horrible. Your son, he broke both of his legs. And still, the farmer, ancient man, said, well, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing yet. And then a war came, and his son could not be drafted because he broke his legs. And then finally, the farmer said, it all worked out in the end. Like I said, I completely butchered that story, but I honestly love thinking about that as someone who is very anxious and someone who can be very negative.
Anxiety and anxiousness is just summed up in a sentence. You've forgotten how big the world is. Each time I get anxious or nervous about something and I like stress out about when something's going to happen, if it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, like my thing is I always try to run through every single scenario that could happen, and I try to tell myself, like, I've thought through everything, I know everything that could happen. But really, when you're anxious, you're just forgetting how big the world is. I have to remind myself, like, those videos where they show the world and they zoom out and they just show like the sun compared to the earth and then the galaxy compared to the sun, and they just show how big things are. I'm like, Christina, are you really stressing about this right now? Look at how big the universe is and you're stressing about this? You're stressing about that guy, that girl that maybe didn't text you back like immediately, and you're stressed about if she even likes you, if you said the wrong thing. Like, stop stressing. I like this story actually, like this story about the horse and how like things seem bad at the time because they broke his legs and all this stuff. Like, it just shows you like you can't see the full picture. You're just so zoomed in on the bad thing and you've forgotten like the bigger picture and the fact that things could actually work out better than you expected. It's a terrible story, but he had to break his legs to not be potentially killed in a war. Like, things are happening for you. You can just never you can never see it in the moment. Gen Z refused to get hurt. This might sound stupid, like who wants to get hurt? But if you don't open up, you don't get hurt. And if you don't open up, you don't connect. Getting hurt is just a non-negotiable risk to having a great relationship. When you do open up and you start to bare your flaws to someone or talk about like deep things you've never shared with people before, it's possible that they could hold it against you in the future. It's possible that they could like remember that thing and then use it against you. It's possible that they can like twist that and manipulate it and then like make you feel worse about yourself in the future. Like, that's all a risk, but it's a non-negotiable risk to potentially having someone actually understand you so deeply. It's a non-negotiable risk to potentially have someone understand you like no one ever has before. It's a non-negotiable risk to potentially feel so seen by someone, have someone like see you, your past, your history, what you've been through, the tough times, and just see you and accept you and love you for who you are. You can't take all the good with none of the bad. And I think sometimes that's what Gen Z forgets. Because we are so aware and we have expectations. We've seen video after video after video of relationships gone wrong, this toxic relationship, how my marriage crumbled within 6 months. We've seen all the videos, all the TikToks, and I think some of us are very hyper aware and vigilant and anxious that we want to avoid all those things. And it's understandable. Not everyone should have a toxic relationship. I'm not saying that. Not everyone should go through an abusive marriage. Having someone like screw you over and hurt your feelings is a non-negotiable risk. You can't avoid that if you want to have a really deep relationship. The ideal situation for everyone, and I'm sure the one that we all hope for, is that we do open up form a great relationship and we never get hurt. That is the ideal. But is that the reality? Is that what actually happens? It's kind of like saying hiccups are involved. You can't go into a relationship thinking that everything will be perfection. Perfection is something people strive for, but it's not something you can actually attain. It's like you're chasing this imaginary thing. You're chasing this thing that doesn't exist. And that's why you're going to be chasing it forever. Sometimes when I see little Reddit posts online where people are talking about their singleness and stuff, and I see how much they're just thinking and ruminating and like, should I do this? Should I do that? Like, if I do this, then this will happen. And it's just, you can tell how much people want things to like work out right or want things to be perfect. And sometimes I think when you are striving for that perfection, you're kind of prolonging your singleness period. Chasing a perfect outcome is chasing no outcome. There is no way you can have a perfect relationship. Even when you see a happy couple talking about how their relationship is perfect, instead what they're meaning is they can have arguments and tension, but they resolve it really well. They have moments where they disagree and don't share the same opinion, but they can work through it in a healthy way. That's actually what they mean instead.
Okay, I turned 40 this year and I've never been in love. I've never been in a relationship, and I've had no one ever asked me out on a date.
I feel like this is a lot of our worst fears, like getting to this age and just not having had a relationship. It's not a bad thing. I feel like we have so many conceptions built up that like that is bad, but we'll see what she has to say.
Sharing that is really shameful for me because I can remember being in my early 20s and being with a group of new friends that I didn't know very well, and them all talking about like their first kiss and dates that they've been on, and thinking about how to pretend or lie that I've had experiences that I've never had. I'm so grateful for TikTok because I've seen other people talk about this, and it has helped me feel less alone because I truly felt like there was something legitimately deeply wrong with me.
And sometimes I think that sometimes the worst bit about 22 and single, 23 and single, 25 and single isn't actually the singleness in itself. It's just the fact that you feel alone. Like no one else is going through what I'm going through. Like, am I the only one that's asking myself these things? Am I the only one that's like watching these sorts of videos? Like, it's just the way that you feel so alone and you don't feel like you have other people in your community.
For my lack of experience, and I knew that most of that, especially in like my teenage years when I was in the late 90s, early 20s, was because I was fat. And I felt like if only I could lose weight, then maybe somebody would love me and maybe somebody would think I was desirable or worth it.
That is a very important point because I'm so glad that she's opened up about that and shared like the fact that she was insecure about her weight and being fat, and she was telling herself that when I lose weight, then someone can love me. Because I feel like we all have our own version of that. I know weight is probably a really popular one, a very common one, but I'm sure for some people it's like appearance, like acne scars, or when I look prettier, when I get filler, when I get Botox, do you know what I mean? Like we all have our own version of it. Sometimes it might not even be appearance, it might be like financial, like when I've kind of got a more secure job, when I've got my own place, when I've moved out of my family's home. You can argue some are worse than others, some are better than others. I don't want to discredit and say that they're all the same, but we've all got some version of an insecurity that's telling us that we're not good enough to be loved by someone else yet.
So there's a certain kind of loneliness that I think comes along with this, and a sense of kind of always being on the outside looking in. There's an Indigo Girl song that kind of talks about one day finding love, and I have always related to a part in that song. And it has made me cry endless buckets of tears because that is a legitimate feeling that I've had, and I've never felt like others could relate to me in that way. And I think I've never heard that song, but that concept of feeling like you're on the outside looking in, it summed up so well. Still feel unworthy of love, and I'm still trying to figure out why it is that I don't date much, even when I did online dating or tried to do that. But it just was something really hard for me. And maybe it does come back to that core thing of like not feeling worthy of love. And because I don't believe in that thing that people say that you have to love yourself before others can love you. I don't think that that's true at all, because I've seen pure love and real love.
I really do think you should, like, whether you agree with it or not, I think it's in your best interest to not be taken advantage of and manipulated, that you do love yourself before you get into a relationship. Because if you don't love yourself and there's certain things that you kind of like lower your standards for and settle, you don't love yourself enough. But someone else is giving you this attention, they're sending you the messages, they're love bombing you, and it's a validation that you're not used to. It might mean that you settle for quite bad behaviour. I really do think loving yourself is actually a form of like self-protection in a way. Your outside circumstances don't reflect your value. I'm going to repeat that. Your outside circumstances don't reflect your value. Just because you have a boyfriend doesn't mean you're any more worthy of the person. Just because you have a large social media following doesn't mean you're a good person. I mean, there's 1,000,001 examples I could show for that. Just because you have lots of money and you have a big house, you have a flashy car, doesn't mean you're more valuable as a person. Just because you're more attractive, more pretty, like you got more muscles, you've got, I don't know, like really good facial structure and like Botox, doesn't mean you're a nice person. Like, we all know this, but we sometimes forget to apply it to ourselves. Just because you are single at 25 or 26, 21, 19, like doesn't mean you're any less valuable as a person. Don't use these external metrics as a measure of like how valuable you are and whether or not you are ready, you are good enough. Gen Z is allergic to red flags. When you run away from the slightest imperfection, I feel like you don't give people a chance. And there's nuance to this. I would never ever encourage someone giving a second chance to someone who was quite obviously toxic or just a horrible, not great person. But I do feel like sometimes with the rise of like icks and like beige flags and pet peeves, sometimes I feel like when you do meet someone on the apps or in real life, sometimes you might not give them the chance that they deserve because you're so focused on like this small slight imperfection. This definitely applies to more to some people than others. Like, I'm sure some people aren't really fussed about icks and icks are like a minor thing, whereas some people an ick is like, I literally could break up with the person if they gave me the ick. Because we're so used to seeing like a 30-second video of someone, you're so used to just watching them for a short time and like you've got a decision made up instantly, when really, okay, yes, they might convey their personality and show themselves and you've got an idea of who they are, but you don't actually know.
What age is it a red flag if somebody says they've never been in a serious relationship?
Like, if you've never been in a serious relationship, then who cares? But I'll say 26. Here's why. Here's why. Because then you got
I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments. Like, put down your like age limit in the comments.
high school, if you went to college, and then your like post-grad first couple years. That's really like 3 phases. So if you didn't have any there, then
We're in trouble.
no, we're not in trouble, but we're looking at trouble.
No, people like that have an aversion to love, I'm convinced.
Aversion to love.
How do you not?
That'd be a good album name.
That's a good remark, huh?
Good album.
That is a good album name.
Not fall in love with somebody. Or maybe they just like haven't dated. Like maybe they just don't go on dates. Maybe they're just strictly about the boys or for the girls.
What about Saturday nights?
I mean, yeah, what she said is valid. Maybe they just don't go on dates. Yeah, a lot of people don't. I feel like some people, it just comes naturally and so easily to them. And then other people, it's like, how do I even get started? Like, it's just so hard. I don't necessarily agree with his age. Like, he said 26. I really don't even know where to start on that because everyone's situation is so different. He's assuming that people have gone to college and done post-grad. He's assuming people have like graduated from high school. Like, some people are homeschooled. That's a whole different situation. Some people, do you know what I mean? Like, I don't really agree with the number. Gen Z don't know what they want. There's what you want and then there's what's good for you. And sometimes I think we confuse the two. Sometimes we don't even know what we want at all. Sometimes we don't know like where to start. We don't know what our type is. We don't know what like sort of personality we were after. We don't know like what phase of life we want that person to be in. Do we want them same age, a bit older, a bit younger? Sometimes people do know. Like, these are the people that are serious. They've got the list. They've watched the manifestation videos. But then sometimes I feel like it takes people getting what they want to realize that's actually not what they need. And from what I've gathered online, like reading like little posts on Reddit and videos like this, is sometimes to figure out what you need, you have to just like date around a little bit. Or maybe not date around, but definitely like try things out, see where things go, speak to that guy, speak to that girl, like just try things out, be open. Don't like limit yourself from all these things that you're thinking and like you don't want to get hurt so you're not going to go there, you don't want to get hurt so you're not going to like speak to that guy. Like, you do have to try things out and be quite open to see actually what you want and then maybe what you need.
If you want a happy relationship, find somebody opposite to you. Just kidding. But in personality science, there are some opposite traits that attract. So if you're looking for a compatible relationship, these are the traits to look out for. Number 1 is being high versus low in time management. The reason this works is that 2 people who are high in time management are going to be stepping on each other's toes, and 2 people who are low in time management won't get anything done. The middle gives the perfect balance where the planner provides structure and the less time-oriented partner brings more flexibility and spontaneity. Next is being high versus low in the dominating trait. Similar to time management, 2 highly dominating traits are going to clash and step on each other's toes. 2 low dominating people will likely struggle to make decisions or take charge when necessary. The middle gives a balance where one partner can lead while the other provides support and cooperation. And finally, thinkers and feelers attract. 2 thinkers are going to approach situations from a logical standpoint and potentially struggling with the emotional depth. With 2 feelers, their emotional responses might lead to them making decisions that lack rationality. The middle brings the balance where the thinker brings logical analysis, while the feeler adds emotional depth and sympathy.
Those are just some of the reasons that I thought of, but I'd love to know what some of your ideas are in the comments below. And while you're there, let me know what video I should make next. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.